Hey guys, welcome to my August wrap-up and a little bit of a book haul and my September TBR, sort of. My TBRs lately have tended to be maybes more than definite things, but whatever. August was a bit of a slow reading month, or at least it felt like it was kind of slow. It kind of felt like I was in a bit of a reading slump. I had a really good reading month in July. I read a ton of stuff I really liked, and it was really awesome. But this month I kind of felt like I was in a bit of a slump, but I still managed to get through a few things, and I'll show you them real quick. The first thing I finished in August, I started in July. I don't remember how much I got through it before August happened, but I finished this, Clash of Kings, second book in A Song of Ice and Fire. Really amazing, obviously. I liked it even better than the first one, and it's so good. I can't wait to catch up with this series. I can't wait. I really need to finish get to the 5th book by the end of the year, and hopefully the 6th one I won't have to wait very long, but then I'll be in the same boat as everybody waiting for the 6th one to come out. It's so good. I'm really glad I finally started this. And then after I finished that, I read this book, The Godless by Ben Peake. It is an ARC copy that I got. I had a little bit of trouble getting into it. It's got a really interesting concept to it. Basically, it's this world where, like, a long time ago there were like these gods, and they were like real gods, and they had this war or something, and like then they started dying, and now this society is kind of built around the dying gods, the bodies of the dying gods. Like there's this, it basically takes place in the city that is right next to a mountain that is said to be right on top of the body of a dying god. And then people that are in this world can become cursed, or like they're called cursed by the people in the society. They can be touched by the gods' powers. They can get gods' powers, and like the main character in this finds out that she cannot be affected by fire. And then there's other people. There's one character in this that can see the spirits of the dead, and he's like centuries old. He's like immortal basically, and like he used to rule as a god, but then kind of denounced himself, and then like he's just kind of been avoiding war because he can see dead spirits. And it's really interesting, but it really fell flat. The characters just aren't very interesting. There really isn't any development whatsoever. The world building is kind of lackluster. The writing is in general not very good, and I don't know if that's just because it was an art copy. It didn't really feel complete and was kind of a letdown. I gave it 2 stars, and I actually wrote a review on this, and I was gonna do a video review. Didn't really feel like it though. Sometimes I have a lot to say about a book I don't necessarily like the one I'm gonna show you next. Well, in a couple books, not next, but this one I just didn't really have much to say in a video, so I just wrote a review, and I'll put a link to that in the description if you want to go read it, if you're thinking about picking it up at all, because it's out now, even though I got an art copy. So the next thing I read, I started finally Stephen King's The Dark Tower series. This is the first book, The Gunslinger, and it's so good. I mean, I think a lot of people, the first book in the series is either one of your least favorites or one of your favorites, and I mean I'm only 2 books in now, but I absolutely love it. It's really short, it's really easy to get through really fast, and I love it as an opening to the series. It's just a great opening. It's really quick. It's just like really quick into the world that Stephen King is building and the ideas that Stephen King is building in this. Basically, it's about a gunslinger that is chasing after someone called the Man in Black, and he basically goes through this town that it's kind of got this kind of style of like the old west, from like movies in like old movies, basically old western movies, and mixed with fantasy. So that's like the vibe you get from it, and it's really well done. It's so good. It feels really raw. Like it's really raw writing, in my opinion. Like it's kind of like pure imagination from like just pouring out of Stephen King's head into the book, and like it feels a little bit like not all over the place, but kind of getting there in some ways, just because it's an introduction into such a huge amount of ideas, and I just think it's really interesting. It's really good, and even if you don't necessarily like it, if you want to get into the series, because I know some people don't really, it's hard to get into it for some people. The second book definitely improves, and I'll talk about that in a second, but this is it's really good. I love it. And then I read Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. I was a little bit disappointed with this one. I did a whole video review on it, so you can go watch that to find my thoughts. It just was kind of a bit mediocre compared to what I was hoping to get from it. But I guess it might be just because I've been reading so much amazing fantasy lately. Like, it's pretty much all I've been reading is really amazing fantasy. And this kind of like YA fantasy, watered down, really heavily romanced, like there's a love triangle and everything. It's just, there's too much weird cliche stuff going on in it, and it was a bit upsetting. But oh well, I gave it 3. I gave it 2.5 to 3 stars, and you can go watch my review if you want to know more. And then I read the second book in the Dark Tower, which is The Drawing of the Three, which is like a huge improvement over the first one. Even though I love the first one, this one is just amazing. It takes place partially in our world. It's got a completely different feel to it than the first one. Like, it's completely and totally different from the first one, and that's what I love about it, is that it's absolutely nothing like the first one, except we build on learning about the main character, Roland, the gunslinger, and he's basically in this, like, he has to find, I don't know if it's not really spoiling anything, not really, because the first one's so short, you don't really need to, it's not really a spoiler, it's just, he's basically looking for people in this, and he basically, it kind of ends up in our world, and it's really fun to see Roland, the gunslinger. It was a great character, one of the best characters in our world, and the way Stephen King builds the characters that he meets is just amazing, and he just gives us so many different perspectives, and I mean, it's so good, and I cannot wait to finish the series, and I'll talk about that a bit more when I get to the September TBR. But yeah, so that's all. No, wait, I started reading, hold on. I started reading A Storm of Swords, the third book in the Storm of Ice and Fire series, and this one is most people's favorites, from what I can tell. Out of all of the ones that are out so far, most people say this one is their favorite, I think, and I really like it so far. I'm not really that far into it, I'm like 200 pages into it, and this is the first thing I'm going to finish in September. But before I get to the rest of September, I'll show you a couple things that I got in August. First being Red Seas and a Red Skies by Scott Lynch, the second Gentleman Bastards book, and the second book, the one that comes after Lies of La Camorra. I was thinking about doing a read-along, but that didn't actually end up happening, and I'm not sure when it's going to happen. I know a lot of people were kind of interested in that, like participating and reading along and kind of reading with other people, but I don't know when we're going to do that. I guess I'll try to let people know when I'm at least going to start reading it, and maybe other people will read along and stuff. But yeah, I can't wait to get in this. It's supposed to be completely different from the first one, which I love when books do that. So, and then I got a whole bunch of new Brandon Sanderson books to put in my collection. First two being two standalones, Elantris and Warbreaker. 2 more books in the Cosmere, and I'm really excited to read these. These are both completely unique to all of the other books that I've read by him so far. Completely different worlds, completely different magic systems, and I just can't wait to get into them. I might be reading Warbreaker with Lindsay and Sarah at some point, maybe possibly, but I'm hoping to read this possibly in September. I don't know. But I really want to read Warbreaker really soon, and then I'll get to Elantris at some point later. I've heard Elantris is probably most people's least favorite of his, but it's still supposed to be really good, so I'm excited for both of those. And then I got this little tiny thing. It's like a combination of 2 novellas that have nothing to do with each other. The first novella is Legion, which is not a part of the Cosmere, and then Emperor's Soul, which is a part of the Cosmere. I think the Emperor's Soul takes place in the same world as Elantris, maybe, possibly, but has nothing to do with it in general. I don't know, I'm not completely sure. I know there's a sequel to Legion, I think, possibly, that's coming out at some point, or is already out, I don't know. But I just wanted to get this real quick, because it was cheaper than all the other books that he has. And it's really short, and I should be able to get to it at some point. And then I got this big freaking thing, the full, complete Alcatraz, also by Brandon Sanderson. This sounds really interesting. It's a middle grade series, and there's like several books or several stories in here or something. Like it's a bind up of all of the series so far. I don't know if the series is completed yet, but this is all of them, and it's supposed to be really good for a middle grade series. And I just love what it says on the back. I am not a good person. My purpose is to show you the truth about me and to prove that I am not the hero everyone says I am. In the hush lands, those librarian-controlled nations such as the United States, Canada, and England, this book will be published as a work of fantasy. But do not be fooled. This is no work of fiction, nor is my name or the Brandon Sanderson. I know the events of my life may seem wondrous and mysterious, and I will do my best to explain them, but please remember that my purpose is not to entertain you. My purpose is to open your eyes to the truth. This is my story, the story of a selfish, contemptible fool, the story of a coward, the story of Alcatraz Smidgery. I don't know, that just sounds really interesting. Like, my name's not really Brandon Sanderson, and I don't know, I think it sounds really cool, and I can't wait to get into it. And then for September, I've been reading a lot of fantasy lately, and I love fantasy so much, but I really need to branch out a little bit more. Like, it's not like I'm trying to force myself to do that, to branch out more. I really just feel like I want to right now, though I am going to be reading a lot more fantasy, even more, like finishing the Storm of Swords, and I want to possibly maybe in September get through these two, Wastelands and Wizard and Glass, the next two books in the Dark Tower series. I really want to, not sure yet, but I also really know that I want to read Cat's Cradle by Kurt Vonnegut this month. I read Slaughterhouse 5 a few months ago and fell in love with it, and I really want to read more by Kurt Vonnegut. Like, I want to get through this book and then buy more of his books and read a bunch more of them pretty soon. So I want to read this since it's the only other one that I have by him right now. And then other fantasy, I might be reading Warbreaker, I might be reading Red Seas Under Red Skies, I'm not sure. But other books that are not fantasy that I want to read really soon are like All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr and Night Film by Marsha Pessel. Those are two that I really want to read really soon, that I've been like craving to read really soon. Then there's a bunch of other fantasy series I want to get into, like The Dragon Riders of Pern and The Chronicles of Thomas Covenant, I think that's what it's called. I have those on my shelf and I want to read them really badly, but there's also just a whole bunch of other stuff that's not fantasy I want to read as well. Try not to force myself, like I said in a few videos ago, in an update video I said I didn't want to force myself to read if I didn't feel like it. I've been trying to get into other things as well. I've been trying to write more and stuff like that, and doing other stuff as well. But yeah, I'll try to get through as much as I can and try to review as much as I can whenever I finish things. I'm going to do a full series review on the Dark Tower whenever I finish. I said I was going to finish the Dark Tower by the end of September, but that's not going to happen. I'm not sure when it's going to happen. I'm figuring out that I really love it the way it's going, so I don't really mind taking my time with it. So yeah, that's everything I think I wanted to talk about. If you've read any of this stuff, let me know what you thought, and if you want to read any of it, definitely let me know that as well. And thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you very soon with more.